Who exactly are the Boston Bruins through 21 games? We have a pretty good idea of what they're capable of. We've also seen what they are kind of at their worst. So, what is this team? We're going to talk about it as we do the Atlantic Division Power Rankings here on today's episode of Locked On Boston Bruins.
You're Locked On Bruins, your daily podcast on the Boston Bruins. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What is up, Bruins fans, and welcome back to the Locked On Boston Bruins podcast. I'm your host, Ian McLaren, and this is a daily show where we discuss all things Spoked B. Today is Wednesday, November 29th, and I want to thank you so much for making Locked On Bruins part of your day every day. Free and available on your favorite podcast app and on YouTube, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. And as Spotify Wrapped starts to drop, if Locked On Boston Bruins is in your top 5, please do let me know, and I can share that on social media. You can find the podcast at Locked NHL Bruins, and you can find me at Ian C. McLaren. Today's episode is brought to you by Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONNHL for $20 off your first purchase. It's a practice day for the Boston Bruins. They were up and at it early this morning, shopping, doing their annual shopping trip for kids around the holidays, and then on the ice for a much-needed practice as they prepare for tomorrow night's game against the San Jose Sharks. I don't want to say it's a must-win, but if they lose, it's only going to compound their current 3-game losing streak and raise more questions about whether this team actually is legit. Now, on the surface, it's been a very good start for the Boston Bruins. They're 21 games in through an 82-game season. My math isn't great, but that puts them around the 25% mark. They have a .738 point percentage, meaning they have gathered 73.8 of all possible points through 21 games, 31 out of 42. They have a plus 16 goal differential, and things are pretty good. They're tied for first in the Eastern Conference in points, trailing a bit in terms of point percentage because they've played one more game than the New York Rangers, a team that beat them back on the weekend. But overall, on the surface, things look good. Now, there have been some cracks over the last handful of games, as we discussed on yesterday's podcast. The Bruins have lost 3 in a row. They're 1-3-1 over their past 5. And their penalty killing has dropped off. Save percentage has dropped off. And if you look at their underlying numbers, they're not, super encouraging in terms of long-term sustained success. At 5-on-5, where the majority of the game is played, the Bruins are a negative team when it comes to shot attempt differential. They rank 20th, in fact, with a shot attempt differential of 48.38%. They have taken 880 shot attempts at 5-on-5, but they've allowed 939. They're also being outshot 5-on-5 at a rate of 47.4%. They've taken 450 shots at 5-on-5. They've allowed 499. Now, the good news is they're outscoring the opposition at 5-on-5, 45-32. But those shot and shot attempt numbers kind of suggest, they're lucking out a bit in that respect. And of course, the fact that they rank 3rd in the NHL save percentage 5-on-5 carries a lot of weight there. They've been able to maintain success despite being outshot, despite being out-attempted at 5-on-5 because of the stellar play of Linus Ullmark and Jeremy Swayman. And in this 3-game losing streak, this swoon over the past 5 games, you've seen both of those goalies kind of dip a bit. And the reality is, as strong defensively as the Bruins are, and as good as their goaltending is, there's really no nights off for the offense because they can't afford to, uh, you know, always try to win 2-1 or 3-2. They need to be able to pick up their goalies from time to time and not have them carrying the load night in and night out. Linus Ullmark came in for Jeremy Swayman the other night. Over his past 5 games, he has looked like the better goalie. 3 wins, 2 losses, save percentages of .931, .941, .964, but over the past couple, .825 and .900. But that's better than Jeremy Swayman has been recently. Over his last 5 games, he's 1, 2, and 2 with save percentages of .895, .852, .894, .909, and .889. And in only one of those games were they, exorbitant shot totals from the opposition, losing 5-4 in overtime to Tampa Bay, allowing 5 goals on 47 shots. The others were in the 20s. So all that to say, are the Bruins as good as they were to start the season? Undefeated in their first 7, number 1 in the NHL. No, they're not that good. They were boosted by the goaltending, a number 1 ranked penalty kill, and strong team defense. When you see cracks there, they're not deep enough up front to withstand those cracks on the blue line and in net. Are they as bad as losing to last place in the Metropolitan Division Blue Jackets? Well, no, I don't think they're that bad. I do think they are a playoff team at the end of the day. It would take a pretty epic, maybe not epic collapse, but a real long-term drop in production for the Bruins to drop fully out of the playoff race. And right now, according to the Athletics projections, the Bruins still on track to make the playoffs, 99% chance of making the playoffs. Right up there with the Rangers for top spot in the NHL. And when it comes to Stanley Cup, well, right now they have a 14% chance, according to the Athletic, which is higher than the Dallas Stars, the Carolina Hurricanes, and the Colorado Avalanche, New York Rangers, rounding out the top 5. So things still looking pretty good for the Boston Bruins. Again, it's easy to, lose faith in the midst of a losing streak and to ask questions about the makeup of the team. But we could not have asked for a better start in the post Patrice Bergeron and David Krejci era. And tomorrow night against the San Jose Sharks is a real opportunity to turn things around. If they lose to San Jose, a game that we'll preview on tomorrow's podcast, there will certainly be some more questions and some more hand-wringing. But for the time being, those 2 losses to Detroit and New York, somewhat understandable matinees after a holiday, back-to-back. The game in Columbus, a little less excusable. And again, the San Jose game, if they are to not win that one, it'd be a pretty bad look indeed. But we will preview that one on tomorrow's podcast and look at the Atlantic Division power rankings here as today's podcast continues. Passion, drive, and patience. What brings home the winning trophy is also what keeps your ride alive. eBay Motors has everything you need to maintain your vehicle and level it up to peak performance. From superchargers, roof racks, exhaust kits, and LED headlights, whether you're into speed, power, or style, eBay Motors has you covered. They have over 122 million parts for your ride and you'll always find exactly what you're looking for. With the eBay Guaranteed Fit, your part is guaranteed to fit your ride every time or your money back. Because with eBay Motors, you're burning rubber, not cash. Keep your ride alive at ebaymotors.com. Eligible items only, exclusions apply, and the eBay Guaranteed Fit is available only to U.S. customers, but they have all the parts you need at the prices you want, so turn your car into the MVP and bring home that win. Locked On has launched the first ever national sports 24/7 streaming channel on YouTube. Locked On Sports Today is here for you 24/7, covering the top sports stories of the day with local experts and Locked On national show hosts covering every league. Go to Locked On Sports Today on YouTube and subscribe to the first ever national sports 24/7 streaming channel. Time now to update the Atlantic Division power rankings. And the Bruins, spoiler alert, still first place in the division, although the Florida Panthers are really creeping up here. But let's start at the bottom. And there's a bit of a, maybe not a surprise team at the bottom, but a team I expected to be a bit higher is dwelling there at the moment. That is the Ottawa Senators. They're 8-9 through 17 games with a .471 point percentage. It is worth noting that they have played way less games than other teams in the division. Only 17 games played. Toronto's next, as is Detroit, with 20 games. But having said that, they still haven't made the most of their opportunities, and they are below 500 at the moment. One sort of encouraging thing is that despite the fact they're at the bottom of the division, they do have a +1 goal differential, meaning there is some room for this team to get back on track. Now, they were shut out the other night 5-0 by those Panthers in a very spirited affair. I'm sure you all saw the sweeping misconducts that were levied out near the end of the game. I'm kind of surprised that they have not replaced head coach DJ Smith, new owner Michael Anlauer being a bit patient there. But I can't see him lasting much longer if, in fact, these losing ways continue for the Ottawa Senators. In 7th place this week, I am putting the Montreal Canadiens. They have a record of 9-10-2, 20 points in 21 games, .476 point percentage, but they have a -16 goal differential. So you know what? I'm swapping these two teams. I'm going to put Ottawa in 7th, despite the fact they have a slightly lower point percentage, but that big gap in goal differential is enough for me to put the Senators above the Canadiens. I have more hope for Ottawa this season than I do for the Montreal Canadiens. There's a big gap there. Montreal scored one fewer goal than Ottawa, but they've allowed 16 more goals, and the outlook for the Canadiens a lot bleaker than it is for Ottawa. So I'm putting Montreal in 8th, Ottawa in 7th, and in 6th place, the also somewhat disappointing Buffalo Sabres. They're an even 500 team, 22 points through 22 games, 10-10-2. They did win their last game over the New York Rangers, which was pretty impressive. They are -7 in goal differential. They just sent Devin Levi back to the AHL for a bit more seasoning as Ukko-Pekka Luukkonen kind of rides things now. They're without Tage Thompson. Just not the same firepower that they had last season either. They were one of the top scoring teams. Right now, they're tied with Florida for 5th in the division with 64 goals, 4 through 22 games. Their scoring has dropped. They're 4-4-2 over their last 10. Just kind of a mid team at the moment, which is kind of surprising considering, again, like Ottawa, they were expected to take a step forward this year and perhaps challenge for a playoff spot. They are only 3 points back of Toronto and Tampa Bay. in terms of the wild card race. We'll touch on that in a moment. Both those teams in the wild card spots at the moment. But point percentage wise, even 500 and just kind of mid at the moment. In fifth this week, I'm putting the Tampa Bay Lightning. They're 10, 8, and 5 over their to start the season through 23 games, 25 points, 543 point percentage. They have lost 2 in a row, despite the return of goaltender Andrei Vasilevsky, and they have a very surprising -1 goal differential. Right now, they're hanging on to the second wildcard spot, but they are only 3 points up on Washington, and Washington has 5 games in hand. Point percentage wise, in the East, they are behind Washington and are, in fact, I guess they would still be in the top 8. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. But outside the wild card race by point percentage because of the crazy 3-3 wild card rules, etc. So, all that to say, I mean, it's really weird in the Metro right now. The Flyers are in a playoff spot over the Capitals, despite having a lower point percentage. They've played 4 more games and are only 1 point ahead. So that gives you an idea that Toronto or the Metro is a lot weaker this year. But as far as the Atlantic goes, bottom 4, we have Montreal, Ottawa, Buffalo, and Tampa Bay. All teams struggling at the moment, and all teams in danger of not making the playoffs. And that's true of the Tampa Bay Lightning, although I do expect they will get it going here, especially as Andrei Vasilevsky finds his form. Now, let's get to the top 4 in the Atlantic here as the podcast continues. I personally used the Game Time app a few times this year to attend concerts and sporting events, and it was a fantastic experience. And you shouldn't have to worry when you're buying tickets to your next big event. Game Time is a fast and easy way to buy tickets for all sports, music, comedy, and theater. And with killer last-minute deals, all-in prices, views from your seat, and their best price guarantee, they take the guesswork out of buying tickets. Now, what is that guarantee? Well, if you find tickets in the same row and section for less, Game Time will credit you 110% of the difference. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONNHL for $20 off your first purchase. Terms do apply. Create an account, redeem code LOCKEDONNHL for $20 off. Download Game Time today. Last minute tickets at the lowest price guaranteed, and find exclusive flash deals on tickets for football, basketball, baseball, concerts, comedy, theater, and more today. The top 4 teams in the Atlantic Division begin with the Toronto Maple Leafs, who had a weird win last night against Florida. It looked like the Panthers had won in a shootout, but the goal didn't count. Toronto came back out there and scored for the win. They are 6-3-1 over their last 10 games, 625 point percentage, and a +2 goal differential, although they have issues on the blue line with Mark Giordano going out. I don't see the Toronto Maple Leafs as especially dangerous this year. Obviously very top heavy, but questions in net, questions on the blue line, and those are big areas where you can't afford to have weaknesses. The Detroit Red Wings made waves on Tuesday by signing Patrick Kane to a 1-year prorated $2.75 million contract. Now, there's legitimate questions as to how well he can play after hip resurfacing surgery. But if he can find his game, that's a big add for the Red Wings on the ice and could solidify them as a playoff team. Right now, they're in a good spot, 3rd in the Atlantic, tied with the Maple Leafs for points, point percentage, identical records actually, 11-6-3. But the Red Wings have won 3 in a row. They are also a plus 14, which is the second best goal differential in the Atlantic Division. Lots to like about this team. Alex Lyon, who we all know from Florida's run last year, playing very well for them. They have Ville Husso as well. James Reimer still kicking around. Detroit seems pretty legit at the moment, and we'll see if they are able to keep it going. Interested to see their shot attempt differentials at the moment. They're actually worse than the Bruins, 47.32 in terms of shot attempts at 5-on-5 and 49.53 in shots. So their underlying numbers a little concerning as well, although they're boosted by a 11.27 shooting percentage at 5-on-5, which is the highest. So they might come back down to earth a little bit, as the Bruins are currently experiencing. But in the East, with the Atlantic kind of being a bit more mid than we expected, Detroit certainly has an opportunity to be a playoff team, perhaps top 3 or wild card. Again, in the Metro, it's a bit of a mess right now. New York, Carolina have been very good, but the next best team in terms of points is the Flyers. They're at 23 behind, 1, 2, 3, 5 Metro teams. 5 Atlantic teams. The Capitals have an opportunity to make up some ground with these games in hand, but the Islanders, Devils were expected to be better. They're down there, only 3 points up on Columbus for last place. The Penguins are down there. So in a year where 5 teams from the Atlantic could make it with the wild card rules, Detroit certainly could stick in the mix. Now, second in the Atlantic this week, I'm tempted to put them in first just because of how Boston's been playing lately, but we'll keep it in second because the Bruins are a full, however you look at it, 10% ahead in terms of point percentage. 636 for the Florida Panthers. They're 13-7-2 through 22 games, 3 points back, but the Bruins do have a game in hand. They have a 738 point percentage, and the Bruins have the top goal differential still in the Atlantic at plus 16, despite their recent struggles and lopsided losses, allowing 5 goals, 7 goals, 5 goals in their past 3 games. 5-3-2 identical records over the last 10 games for Detroit and Boston. Florida's 6-3-1 over their last 10. When it comes to streaking, the Bruins 3 in a row have lost. Detroit 3 in a row have won. So they're the team on the up and up at the moment. Florida kicking around, and also a team to be reckoned with. Now, it'll be interesting to see if Toronto, Tampa Bay can reclaim their spots in the top 3 that they've traditionally held. We all remember the Panthers kind of snuck in last year and went on that run. They look stronger. Detroit looks pretty good. So it's going to be very interesting. And the Bruins, again, cannot afford to drop points to last place teams. They did so to Columbus. They can't do it again to San Jose tomorrow night. And we'll preview that game, including some interesting line combinations being deployed at practice on tomorrow's episode of Locked On Boston Bruins. Again, please do hit me up with Spotify Wrapped if Locked On Boston Bruins is in there. And please do take care of yourselves, take care of each other. We'll talk to you again here tomorrow on a fresh episode of Locked On Boston Bruins, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your favorite team every single day.